so let's jump in. I'll just start with a few announcements. So I'm Dr. Dustin Sulak. Welcome to the webinar. I'm so glad to see you all. And I really appreciate those of you that leave your camera on so that I can actually see you. And later we'll have a chance for live questions and we can interact directly. I'm sure you know from experience during this whole shutdown that having a two-way street with video is really nice to look at new faces. And I see a lot of new faces tonight and some returning faces. And so I just want to explain what we're doing tonight is different from our regular webinars. So we have a healer certified training program. That's a training program for caregivers, dispensary agents, industry professionals, and just individuals that want to learn a lot more about how to use cannabis to help themselves and help others. And so that training program includes a webinar that we do every month where we cover cannabis research that's new, things that I think are clinically relevant or relevant to patient care. And we cover the research, and then we do a lot of topics of question and answer and anything else that people want to address. We talk about cases. It's really fun. That's every month. We've made that free to everyone. And then for those that are in the training program, we have all the videos of the webinars stored there so you can watch anyone from any time, and they're all time-stamped so that you can jump straight to a certain topic or answer that interests you. And we have this incredible library. The Healer Training Certified Program is just excellent. I feel so good about it. I just went through the whole thing and made a few edits, and I think it's an incredible body of information. And so if you like tonight's webinar and you're interested for a deeper dive, go to healer.com and check that out. I think you'll enjoy that. The other announcement is that we are going to be recording tonight's webinar. So if you don't want your beautiful face recorded tonight, then go ahead and turn off your video because it is being recorded and will probably be reused for education purposes. So that's all I have for you. Now, my goal tonight is to basically go through a basic presentation about how to get great results with cannabis and to really simplify it and make it straightforward. And I think we do that to a great extent on the healer.com educational website, but I'm going to be even more simple and straightforward tonight. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about the products that we've come out with, the products that Healer is making that I feel so great about and that I've been treating my patients with recently. And so this is what's exciting in my life. And yeah, so let's jump in. I'm going to share some slides. I received a number of questions ahead of time that many people submitted, and I appreciate that. Some of them are perfect because they're things that I was already planning on talking about, and others are topics that are kind of great questions that I wasn't thinking of. So thank you for those. And now I have the screen shares. Are we good with the slides, the audio, and the video?
Yes, it looks perfect.
Okay, good. So how to get great results with medical cannabis. Let's see if we can distill it down. And the focus is how to use cannabis both to treat and to prevent symptoms. And I think just that first line is already a little different for a lot of people because in my clinical experience, so many people that are already using cannabis come to me effectively treating their symptoms, meaning they're getting symptom relief, but they're still symptomatic and they haven't prevented their symptoms. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes people make with cannabis is they just chase symptoms around instead of preventing them. And that's missing a lot of what cannabis has to offer. We're going to talk about all the cannabinoids, but a little focus on the acidic cannabinoids, how to find one's optimal dosage, how to make cannabis treatment more cost effective, what to look for in cannabis products, and then we'll focus on our products that are available here in Maine, as well as our CBD products, which are available everywhere. So disclosure, I'm an osteopathic physician with 11 years of clinical experience treating patients with cannabis in Maine. I'm a well-known educator. I love educating. You're probably getting that already, but wait till we dig in to the content tonight. This is something I'm very passionate about. I am a co-founder, an equity owner, and an employee of the company Healer. And so theoretically, that presents a conflict of interest. I may be providing information tonight that's going to make you more likely to use cannabis or to buy Healer products or something like that. But truly, my goal is for my patients and anyone else who's using cannabis anywhere in the world to be able to get the best results with cannabis. And I really don't care if you use my products. I wish that other people would have made products like mine so that my patients could have been using them all these years. But essentially, I felt the need to solve a problem that a lot of my patients were facing in terms of access to products that are compatible with my recommendations that I think will get them the best results. So a lot of websites here on this page. Healer.com is our free patient education website, and that's where you can also learn about the certified training program. HealerCBD.com is where we sell our hemp products, and you can learn more about CBD and CBDA products there. And then HealerCannabis.com is the page for our Maine products. They're just sold in Maine and they contain THC. So that's just for patients here in the state of Maine, or for surrounding states. You can travel to Maine as long as you have an ID card, a cannabis card from your home state. You can use that to access products in Maine. And then finally, we also have products in Maryland. And so to find out about those products and where to get them, healer.com/formulas. Lots of websites. And you can see a little picture of the certification program and the products. So how to feel your best every day. This is the goal. Some days are going to be better and some days are going to be worse, but how can we take your physiology, your physical health, your mental health, your experience of every day? How can we maximize that experience for you? How can we make that great every day? And so these are the goals, in broad strokes. When we're using cannabis to help someone feel their best every day, I think one of the most important and sometimes overlooked treatment strategies or targets, if you will, is sleep. Because when people aren't getting a good restorative sleep, which to me is less about the number of hours, but more about how people feel in the morning. If you wake up in the morning and you feel like you can jump out of bed and you're ready to go, and you have a sense that you just had a healing experience, that your body was healing overnight, that's restorative sleep. And if you don't have that, then that's a major opportunity to improve your health globally. And I put that first for a reason. It's just so important. Hard for people to be healthy if they're not getting good restorative sleep. And then what else? For people to have daytime activity, to be able to do the things they want to do during the day without being impaired. That includes meaningful work, which, by the way, is one of the best medicines in the universe, I think, for human beings. To be actively engaged in something that you find meaningful and something that you find inspiring, that just takes a person's health to the next level. And so often in my practice, I've found that if we can use cannabis to get someone back to the point where they can engage in meaningful work and actually feel inspired in their life, then their health just skyrockets after that. And cannabis is a great tool for getting there. Now, cannabis can be used to create impairment. I don't mean that that's a bad thing. That's a very useful aspect of cannabis, because it's not just impairment, it's usually an altered state of consciousness that allows one to get a new perspective on their life and to get a sense of connection to things greater than themselves. There's numerous benefits from the psychoactive effects of cannabis, including the impairing effects of cannabis. But for most people, what they want is to be the opposite of impaired during their daily life. They want to be very functional. They want to increase their performance. And that's what I want for my patients as well. So let's talk about how to prevent and treat symptoms with cannabis. The first step is to understand the various components of cannabis, because this isn't just a single medicine. And so if we understand these components, then we can get the kind of initial need right, which is how do we choose the right product or the right general treatment plan. So what I've listed here on the page are just 5 cannabinoids. Cannabis has hundreds of cannabinoids and many other compounds that are important, but we can't discuss them all tonight. So with broad strokes, let's just cover a few things here. THC is the part of cannabis that we know the most about, and that is the most similar to the cannabinoids that our body produces. So we have an inner pharmacy that make compounds that are almost identical in activity to THC. And we make these compounds for the purpose of regulating all the other systems in the body and responding to illness and injury. And that's why THC is such a versatile medication, because it interacts with these receptors that are found throughout our system, modulates all the other systems of the body, and just has incredible capacity to alter our physiology in a way that promotes health. THC is also the most strong psychoactive component of cannabis, meaning it creates a shift in one's perception and one's cognition. And as I mentioned, those shifts can be very beneficial. That can also be considered a side effect depending on what time of day it is and where you are and what you're doing and what your goals are. Now, THC is a great pain reliever. It's the strongest pain reliever in cannabis. It also has anti-inflammatory properties. It seems to improve metabolism and reduce the rates of insulin resistance and obesity and diabetes. It's an excellent muscle relaxant. So THC has numerous properties. They sound too good to be true, and many things in cannabis are like that. Now, one of the second most well-known cannabinoids in cannabis would be CBD. And CBD is very different to THC in its physiologic activity and how it works in the body, but there's some overlapping properties. So number one is that CBD indirectly acts upon the endocannabinoid system in a way that just increases its tone a little bit. It takes the cannabinoid activity that your inner pharmacy is already engaged in and makes that a little bit stronger. But besides that, it's doing so many other things in the body, including acting on the serotonin receptors, which influence mood and anxiety. And a lot of people find that CBD is an effective treatment for anxiety. It has numerous anti-inflammatory properties. It does help with pain, though not nearly as strong as THC. It's another one of these very broadly acting compounds in cannabis, but one of its most useful purposes, in my opinion, is when it's used as an adjunct to THC. Because when someone takes THC, there's what we call a therapeutic window, which means there's going to be a certain dose where there's some relief of symptoms. And then there's going to be another dose where there's side effects that emerge. And some of those side effects might be impairment. When you add CBD into the treatment, the effective dose tends to stay the same, but the side effect dose tends to increase. So you get this widening of the therapeutic window of THC. Mother Nature gave them to us together. They go really well together as a treatment. CBD is extremely well tolerated and very safe. Now, the plant cannabis does not make does not make THC or CBD. It actually makes precursors to these compounds. And when these precursors are heated or stored for a very long time at room temperature, they eventually change into what we call neutral or decarboxylated cannabinoids. So THCA turns into THC and CBDA turns into CBD. And for a long time, everyone in the scientific world of cannabis thought these are the inactive precursors. We need to heat them in order to activate them to get the therapeutic effects that we're looking for. And it turns out that that's extremely false. We now know that these acidic cannabinoids, the A stands for acid, so it's THC acid or CBD acid. These compounds are extremely powerful. They're very well absorbed in the body, especially through the GI tract, much better absorption than their neutral counterparts. In many ways, they seem to act more strongly. Now, THCA is a very unique compound. It acts quite differently to THC. It does have properties where it can increase the function or tone of the endocannabinoid system, different mechanism than CBD. It tends to increase the sensitivity or the activity of the the cannabinoid receptors. It's also an excellent anti-inflammatory, anti-nausea agent at very low doses, extremely well tolerated. It has anti-epileptic properties that I've observed. It's just a component of cannabis that is not easily overlooked in my practice now. And so many of my patients that add THCA to their regimen report improved results. And it's just so safe based on my experience and so effective, but very different from THC. Now, CBDA is much more similar to CBD than THCA is to THC. CBDA and CBD have a lot of overlap, but CBDA, again, is better absorbed in the body, and it seems more potent in a lot of ways, especially as far as animal studies are concerned, a lot more potent in its pain relieving and anti-inflammatory effects, its anti-nausea effects, and its anti-seizure effects, just to name a few. So whenever we study CBDA in animal models, it seems to be very potent and has better absorption and distribution throughout the body. So those two make a really good combo. I think that anyone that's fully decarboxylating all their CBDA into CBD is making a big mistake, because keeping some of that CBDA around makes the product a lot better in my experience. And we'll talk more about that. Now, CBG is kind of the newest cannabinoid that's become available commercially. People are making CBG hemp products. CBG has a lot of the same pharmacologic features as CBD, but tends to be more relaxing. CBD is typically alerting. It makes people feel awake and focused generally. That's one of its desirable properties. People really appreciate that about the CBD. But some people that are sensitive to CBD get a feeling of overstimulation, almost as if they have had too much caffeine or they get restless. And a small percentage of people find that CBD disturbs their sleep. And so for those that don't do well with CBD or don't do well with high doses of CBD, trying CBG is certainly an option. And my early clinical results with it have been very promising. It also seems to be more potent milligram for milligram compared to CBD. So this is just a sample, but I went through that because depending on your needs, you're thinking right now, well, what kind of product do I want and what's going to be most important to me? And after what I just said, probably a lot of you are thinking, well, I want a product that contains all of those. They all sound good. And I think that's a great idea. You know, that was my idea also. They all work really well together. So those are kind of the components of the medicine. But now another really important, the second most important topic in how to prevent and treat symptoms has to do with the delivery method. And so the lungs are an excellent target for delivery of cannabis because you get this rapid onset. Things kick in really quick. So you inhale, they get into the bloodstream, get to distributed throughout the body, and 5 minutes later, you can have a totally different feeling. And not just a reduction in symptoms, but a shift in mind state and a new perspective on suffering and all sorts of other benefits. And so most people are familiar with delivery to the lungs via smoking. So whether it's joints or a pipe or something like that. And if you're not using that all day, every day, I think smoking is a fine way to inhale cannabis. It's been studied. It's been shown that even the heaviest cannabis smokers do not get more cases of lung cancer, and they do not get irreversible pulmonary disease like emphysema. Heavy cannabis smokers do have more cough and more frequent bronchitis, but that all is reversible once they stop smoking cannabis. But as an alternative to smoking, something that I really prefer is what we call flower vaporization. And this would be a little device like the one you see here that heats the cannabis up to a certain temperature where all the medicinal components can evaporate. You can breathe them in, but you don't have to inhale smoke. The plant doesn't actually burn. So no tar, no products of combustion, much less irritating for the respiratory tract. And then finally, we have the very popular vape pens, which is kind of a misnomer because a lot of these products are actually combustion pens. What's happening though is that instead of having all the cellulose in the plant material, what you're heating up is a liquid. This is an extract of cannabis, and that extract can be very potent, and it's extremely convenient. It's very discreet. I put this up there because people love them, and I know from personal experience that they can be made. Vape pens can be made in a way that's safe and free from contamination, but it's hard to do so. And I think a lot of the products out there on the market are not clean and they're not safe. And I just really prefer for patients, instead of facing the unknown of the vape cartridge, and I'm sure many of you remember the whole scare about a year and a half ago of people that were getting this irreversible lung disease or seemingly irreversible lung disease from vaping, that there's problems with these products, and the flower vaporizer is just such a beautiful solution. The other thing that the flower vaporizer allows you to do is take advantage of all of these different varieties of cannabis. Cannabis comes in so many different types, and some are uplifting and some are sedating and some better for nausea, some better for pain. And people can really fine tune and individualize their treatment by finding the right type of cannabis that agrees with them after some trial and error. You can achieve all of those distinct benefits by using the flower vaporizer, but you don't really get those options when it comes to the vape pen. So vape pens are okay if you know they're clean, but not my preference. Now, inhaled route of delivery, because of this rapid onset, this is the best for fast relief of symptoms. And typically in my practice, I use this for episodic symptoms, like something's just coming on. I'm starting to get a migraine. Go inhale cannabis, get it in your system fast. Maybe you can abort it or limit the intensity of it. Or I have this spasm that happens, but not every day, not all day long. It just comes on suddenly. Or I get episodic anxiety and I need something to help me deal with the PTSD related flashbacks, things like that. Inhaled cannabis is great for that, but it's not great for symptoms that are chronic, all day, everyday symptoms because it has a shorter duration of action. And usually what happens is when people just rely on inhaled cannabis, they'll use the cannabis, they'll get some good relief, and then slowly those symptoms will creep back in. And once those symptoms get to the point of becoming bothersome, then they realize it's time to inhale some more cannabis. And they do that and repeat that cycle. Well, each time they become more bothersome, those symptoms are causing distress. And that's making stress hormones go up and probably blood pressure is going up. And you're getting all these physiologic changes, not to mention that you're using those neural pathways of pain or anxiety or whatever it is, they're still getting used every day. And that makes your brain and your body better at experiencing pain or anxiety or whatever it is. And so there's a real argument for not just chasing symptoms around, but actually for treating symptoms. And so, better for treating symptoms has to do with the oral route of delivery. So we have oils or tinctures, we have capsules, and then we certainly have edibles like gummies and brownies, but I really don't recommend those much. They do have their place in certain situations. For example, if an elderly patient with dementia that has a hard time consuming things that taste bad or doesn't like taking meds at all, they'll certainly eat a little candy. There are applications for these products, but in general, I like people to be able to dose their oral cannabis with great precision. And usually edibles make it very hard to do so because there might not be a homogeneous blend of cannabinoids and active compounds throughout the entire batch, or sometimes just because of the nature of edibles, you're getting better or worse absorption in the gut. So it's really not my preferred method. I very rarely recommend that clinically. And then the last delivery method worth mentioning is topical cannabis, which I find extremely effective for localized symptoms, including pain and especially itching, muscle tension and spasticity, inflammatory skin conditions. However, there's just great variability in products that are available for topical use. And it tends to be that more potent products get better results, but it's not always like that. And so, a lot of people might try a topical and not respond to it. What's interesting though is that these infused oils can be used topically, and they tend to be a lot more potent than products that are sold as topical agents. And so if you're wanting to see if you respond to a topical preparation, you can just take your oil and use it topically. And if it works for that, great. Might be a little more expensive, but it's going to be more potent. And so I think that's a fine way to start with topicals. But what I really want to focus on is preventing symptoms. And so again, we're going back to that concept of the therapeutic window where people can readily find a dose of cannabis, a blend of these cannabinoids that are most appropriate for treating your conditions, that's effective for, at a baseline, reducing the prevalence or the incidence of these symptoms, or at least taking their intensity down several notches, but without causing any impairment or any side effects. And I think for people that have chronic everyday symptoms that are missing this route of delivery, you're missing a huge part of what cannabis has to offer you. So that's one thing that we do a lot in the practice is we meet people that have had a fair amount of success with inhaled cannabis. We get them started on the right oral dosing and their results just skyrocket. Now, dose layering is this concept of using cannabis in different ways, different delivery methods to kind of create this overall treatment plan that can be highly individualized. So you have a baseline treatment with oral delivery, which is for most people some kind of a combination of THC and CBD and some of the other cannabinoids, the acidics, and maybe some CBG during the day. But it's usually a combination during the day. But most of my patients for night use, I have them using THC because I find that that's just the most likely to be effective for sleep and least likely to disturb sleep or disturb sleep architecture. As I mentioned, a few people, some people find that CBD actually keeps them awake, and so they don't like using that at night. And I just feel like I don't need to guess and mess around. I've had such great results with the right dose of THC made from a sedating variety of cannabis or a combination of sedating varieties that it's just an excellent treatment for sleep. And it's been studied in polysomnograph studies and shown that the right dose of THC does not disrupt the architecture of sleep. So in other words, it doesn't like just knock you out and make you think you're sleeping, but you're not getting restorative sleep. My patients that use the right dose of oral THC before bed get deep, healing, restorative sleep. And then finally, the cannabis tea. If you don't have access to cannabis formulas that are that contain the acidic cannabinoids, one of the simplest ways to consume these acidic cannabinoids is just to throw a little bud in a cup of tea and pour the hot water over it, let it steep, and drink it. THC has very low solubility in water, so even if it's a really big cup of tea, you're only going to be getting a couple milligrams of THC. It's not going to be a really strong dose, but the THCA is very soluble in water, and so you can get a nice dose of THCA from tea. And in general, if you look at traditional use of cannabis in a variety of cultures, you'll see that the tea form of cannabis is thought of more as a tonic. This is more what people use to stay healthy and treat mild symptoms, versus the heated preparations are stronger medicine. So then there's inhalation for breakthrough symptoms to help fall asleep, and for social and spiritual enhancement, which is very important, especially now with all the social isolation we're all dealing with. And then the topical cannabis for localized symptoms. And so this is cannabis in a nutshell. Like, this is what I do when I have a new patient, either on their first visit or at a follow-up. I'm having them use all three of these if appropriate, but certainly the first two are extremely versatile. And some people don't need inhalation, and some people just have episodic symptoms and they don't need baseline, but this is what most of my patients are doing. So let's talk about finding your optimal dose. How do people do that with cannabis? Well, first of all, we're going to select a product, right? So hopefully that kind of first slide where I went over the cannabinoids helps you start thinking, like, what type of product am I looking for? And if you don't know, if you can't figure it out, then you would just choose one that's a nice blend that has THC, CBD, and as many other cannabinoids in it. And then you can, fine tune that in the future. So address the baseline symptoms first. And I like patients to start subtherapeutic, which means you start at a dose that doesn't work, because people respond to cannabis so differently, and you really don't want to start too high. You want to avoid side effects and avoid building tolerance. And there's other really good reasons for starting low and going slow, but not being afraid to go all the way with the dosing. And then after you start at a subtherapeutic dose, you methodically increase the dose in small increments every few days. And that frequency of titration, or the frequency of increasing the dosage, is, in my clinic, it's determined by the urgency of need. If somebody really needs to get better fast, I'll accelerate that, if they're in a severe amount of suffering. But the real key to this finding your optimal dose is self-awareness. And self-awareness is also the key to healing. I mean, just integration of mind and body, letting your awareness reside in your body, even when your body feels bad, even when it's sick or suffering. Allowing your awareness to reside in the body is a great promoter of health and healing, and also required to have an optimal relationship with cannabis. And I have a tool for that called the inner inventory. And then for people that have tolerance to cannabis, which means they've increased their dose many times over the weeks or months or years, and they're getting less and less benefit, that needs to be reversed. So these are the keys, the 5 simple keys to finding your optimal dose. And so in our cannabis and CBD dosing guides, we have these response trackers where you can check your inner inventory, write down your response, write down the amount of cannabis that you took, and really have a very clear understanding on paper of how this dose is affecting you. And that way you can identify when you reach the right dose. And so the inner inventory is a simple measure. I'd love for us all to do it right now. I'm going to click back so I can see your faces. And so this is really easy to do. And the secret is that just checking your inner inventory, even if it's not related to cannabis, checking it is something that will make you feel better a little bit anyways. Let's try it and see if I'm right. So the first thing is to rate your breath on a scale from 1 to 10 on how easy and smooth it is. 10, it's just like super smooth and easy. 1, it's really hard to take a deep breath. So let's do that now. I'm an 8. My breath is great right now. Next one is your body. So you just remain still and you ask, how comfortable am I? And I'm about a 7 right now in terms of my body comfort. And the last one is mood. How easy is it for you to, like, authentically smile or to just feel content? And You don't have to smile to do this test, but I find that if I'm not smiling already, putting a fake smiling on, put on a fake smile, give it a few moments and see how real it becomes. That's how I kind of rate my answer. So, but right now I can't really do this test because I'm just so happy to be here presenting to you all. So I think I'm a 10 on my mood right now. And then the last one is symptoms. You rate their severity. And so if you do that periodically throughout the day and you kind of link that to your cannabis use, you're not only going to be able to find your optimal dose a lot more accurately, but you're also going to have a better relationship with your health. And it's just such a simple, easy thing to do. I hope you all get in the habit of doing that. And so I want to give you some example dosing plans that I might give to a patient so that you kind of tie this all together and understand what I'm talking about. And I gave several plans that were just like this today in the clinic. So someone's not sleeping well. I don't care what kind of disease or condition they have. I want to get them sleeping well. So I would start with a THC dominant formula in a drop formula so that we can have small increments of titration. And I would love it if that THC formula was made from cannabis varieties that have sedating effects. I usually recommend, if I don't know anything about their sensitivity to THC, I start with 2 milligrams, usually an hour before bed. But if someone has no trouble falling asleep, it's just staying asleep, we could treat at bedtime, and vice versa. We could make it a little earlier if they really need help falling asleep. And then I usually recommend increasing by 1 milligram every other night. So they get about 2 nights with each, with that same dose, and then they go up for another 2 nights and so forth. If they experience restorative sleep and wake feeling rested, do not change the dose. That's the sweet spot there. And if you wake up feeling groggy or stoned, then that means you went a little too far. So decrease by 1 milligram or 1 drop, or sometimes even a half milligram decrease is enough. Pretty straightforward. I think anyone that's not getting sleep should give cannabis a try. Maybe not anyone, but most people benefit from this approach to improve their sleep. And then during the day, what would I recommend for a lot of people? This is kind of a generic recommendation, something that contains, like we mentioned, the THC, the CBD, and the other cannabinoids. For people that might be sensitive to THC or that are concerned about impairment, a really nice strategy is to let them do their nighttime dosing for about a week first before they start daytime dosing, because then they've likely built some tolerance to the psychoactive side effects of the THC, and they have a wider therapeutic window going into this daytime dosing trial. I often start at 1 milligram of each THC and CBD, sometimes a little more if I'm trying to be aggressive, and then I increase by about that much every other day. Again, consistent improvement in the inner inventory after, so you're checking it before the dose, you're checking it after the dose, maybe by about 45 minutes or an hour. And if you're noticing that this is a dose that's really consistently improving my inner inventory, you're probably there in the sweet spot. You could always bump it up a little bit later on if you want to check that out and see if you can get more benefits. And if you have adverse effects, you just go down a little bit. So what are the adverse effects, right? Part of getting your optimal dose in many cases means going a little over the line, finding out what's the message from your body when it says, that's a little too much cannabis, I want you to decrease the dose a little bit. So for THC, people usually report feeling tired, dizzy, clumsy, having poor memory or focus. For CBD and CBDA, most common ways that our bodies communicate that that's been too much is through loss of appetite, kind of a mild nausea or restlessness. And really CBD and CBDA are very well tolerated by most. And THCA, I rarely see any side effects from. So that's, but these are the things to look for. But also you can look for your inner inventory total score. And if you're noticing that administering cannabis is decreasing your score instead of increasing it, then you're probably doing something wrong. And my first guess is taking too much. So in cannabis medicine, we don't say, oh, you have this condition, here's how I'm going to treat you. Oh, you have chronic pain, here's your regimen. Oh, you have anxiety, here's your regimen. You have multiple sclerosis, here's your, it's not like that at all. It's the exact opposite. We treat the patient, not the diagnosis, because people with vastly different conditions could use a very similar regimen, and people with the same condition might use very different regimens. And so this is all about personalized medicine and the capacity to fine-tune your treatment to really get the ideal results without the side effects. And to be able to do that, to fine-tune your treatment, you need the right products. that have the right components in it and that are affordable for you, that are cost effective, and that you know what's in there so that you can make dosing adjustments in the way that we've recommended with confidence that you're doing, that you know what you're doing. And so we'll talk more about labeling and potency in a little bit, but how do we improve effectiveness and lower the cost? Again, the oral dosing. People that are exclusively using inhaled
Oh,
are going to
you
be
see that?
spending
That's
are going
knocked
to
it
be
in.
spending more money. Sorry, somebody just got unmuted there. And people that switch over to oral dosing, even though it costs money to buy these oils or tinctures or capsules, they're noticing that in the long run, they end up inhaling less and they're becoming more productive, and it seems to be a more cost-effective solution. So dose layering does not have to be more expensive. Dose layering can save cost. THC is a great way to improve effectiveness. A lot of people are just leaning on CBD dominant formulations with very little bits of THC in there or no THC. And if you do that, you're going to need much higher doses typically. And so, so using a formula that has a little more THC in it, it could still be CBD dominant, can drastically reduce the cost of the treatment. What we've found at Healer is that including the acidic cannabinoids makes the products much more effective. And so, for example, if you look at our CBD website, if you look at the reviews, it's like review after review, people are saying, this product feels so much stronger than other products I've tried. It's effective at a much lower dose, at half the dose. I attribute that primarily to the content of CBDA that's in there. And I'm seeing the same things with our THC products. People are surprised that 5 milligrams of THC in our day formula feels so strong. And I attribute that to the presence of THCA. Now, we also go to great lengths with our products to maintain high levels of terpenes and other phytoconstituents. And I think those also make the product more effective at a lower dose. The flower vaporizer is a great way to extend the cost effectiveness of inhaled cannabis. It's an upfront cost, but you should all know that anytime fire touches cannabis, like it does in a pipe or a joint or anything like that, 30% of the medicine is gone instantly. And then there's also a lot more exhaled medicine. So there's a lot of waste going on with smoking, and much less of that happens with the flower vaporizer. So those things pay for themselves pretty rapidly. And then if you've built tolerance to cannabis, not only are you wasting efficacy, you're not getting the best results possible, but you're going to be spending a lot more money, and you can reverse tolerance so quickly. And so I just want to focus on that with this next slide. This is, a schematic of the dose response curve that you can find with cannabis. And this is true with THC and CBD and other types of cannabis. So if you start at a low dose and gradually increase your dose over time, you're going to see it's working better, it's working better, it's working better. And then people will reach their optimal dose, which is different from everyone. When you're here at the optimal dose, there is no tolerance building. People can use that same exact dose for years or decades. They maintain the effectiveness of the treatment. Sometimes the treatment even becomes more effective over time, and they're able to lower their dose. That happens commonly. But if you go beyond the optimal dose, you start on this slippery slope. Oh, I increased my dose, but it doesn't feel like it's working as well. Let me increase it again. And it maybe works better for a day or two, and now it's not working as well as it used to. And then they increase it again, and it's not working as well. And so in this situation, if you find yourself down here taking a high dose, not getting the results you're looking for, it's kind of surprising to learn that that less is more, that you can actually reverse this trend by reducing your dose and get better effects. It's kind of counterintuitive. I take less of my medicine and it's going to feel stronger. But yes, that's what happens over time. We have a protocol that helps people do that. It's free on healer.com. It walks you through it. And within 5 days, if you follow that protocol, not only will you be probably using half the cannabis or less if you had built tolerance, but you're also going to have a much better relationship with cannabis and more self-awareness. So let's talk about safe and reliable products. One of the things that I've been dealing with forever is the labeling on products, which is just so challenging so often. Now, what I'm looking for on a label, number one, is what is in this bottle? And it's just surprising that I very often don't know what's in this bottle when people bring something in. And by that, I mean, how potent is it? what's a single dose? How do we do the math? A lot of products just have a number on the front. Like I talked to a patient today who said, yeah, I'm using a CBD product. I bought the 700 milligram one because I couldn't afford the 1500 milligram one. And I'm thinking, so this is where my mind goes. First of all, is it 700 milligrams in a 30 milliliter bottle or a 15 milliliter bottle or a 16 milliliter bottle? What's the potency? And then also, that's kind of irrelevant unless he's taking the drops with a graduated dropper. Most of them don't have the little lines on the dropper with the markings of how many milliliters a person's taking. And very rarely does any product express what's the potency of a single drop. So if you're using a dropper and you squeeze just one little drop out, is that a milligram of cannabinoids? Is that 2? Is it half a milligram? Many products don't say that. And so, if I'm buying a product and it doesn't make it really easy for me to understand milligram dosing, if I have to bust out a calculator to figure that out, then I'm really not interested. And then, the other thing is, besides a clear list of ingredients, it's important to have access to third-party laboratory testing of that product, what's called a certificate of analysis. It should correspond to a batch number on the product. It should be a test of the actual product, not the starting material. And it should be free from contaminants. And so that's why I made my own products, because all of this time, it was really hard for me to recommend products with confidence where I knew exactly what my patients were taking. And so I made my own products to solve these issues and to help patients get better results at lower doses, to save money, and again, to feel their best every day. This is how we get our great results. So I supervise the quality control of my products. My team is amazing. I fully trust what's in these bottles to be what they say they are and to not be contaminated. All of my products contain acidic cannabinoids, so we're very careful with our decarboxylation. We blend in the raw formulas with the decarboxylated formulas, so we get ratios that are desirable for better results, of ratios of neutral and acidic cannabinoids. We have what's called the healer spectrum. And so a lot of people are throwing around the terms, this is a full spectrum cannabis product, this is broad spectrum, this is, whatever. And so we made our own name for it, healer spectrum, because we actually developed technology for filtering and concentrating our cannabis extracts in order to very specifically preserve compounds that we think are medicinal and to take other compounds out that we think are not medicinal and may be contaminants. And so what you get with Healer is a product that's very rich in terpenes, flavonoids, and other phytoconstituents that are within a molecular range that we find desirable. And then, of course, we have very clear labeling. We even have a mini dosage guide on our box. Our formulas, except for the THCA, which I've made less potent because I use it to treat pediatric patients, all of our products are very easy to dose. 1 drop equals 1 milligram. You don't need to do any math. There is those are the products in Maine, by the way. In Maryland, our products are at 20. They're basically 1 drop equals half a milligram, so they're half the potency. And with this lineup that you see here on the page, there's a product for everyone, in my opinion. So far, I haven't had a clinical case where I thought, oh, I wish I would have made another product to fit this person. These are really versatile and can be used in combination, but often are able to be personalized on their own. And then transparency in terms of where we're getting our starting material. We're showing you the certificates of analysis with the third-party labs. We're extremely transparent. I want you to have trust and confidence in any product, whether it's mine or someone else's. I think that's important for healing. So what are you going to look for on a cannabis package? First of all, we have a QR code and a batch ID number that allows you to scan that and go straight to a website that shows you the third-party independent testing. The other thing I'll point out is that we don't have a lot of ingredients, and we're not masking flavors because we don't need to. Our medicine tastes good, in my opinion. What are the ingredients? Organic MCT coconut oil and Maine Organic Farmers and Growers Association certified clean Maine industrial hemp. This is for the CBD products, and just traces of ethyl alcohol. So what's ethyl alcohol? That's just ethanol. It's something that humans have been consuming forever because it's present in fermented fruit. Even fresh fruit has a little bit in there, and it's totally safe. Our bodies know what to do with it. So what is a COA, or certificate of analysis. I'm just going to show you an example. Here's our CBD oil. So you would go to our website and get the same exact document that's on the screen right now. And you can see here the content of the various cannabinoids. And you can see this is mostly a CBD product, but there's a decent amount of CBDA. We do that intentionally. We also have selected for varieties that contain some CBC, some CBG, a little bit of CBGA. And so this is a nice blend of cannabinoids, and the total potency of all the cannabinoids is right around 50 milligrams per milliliter, which is our goal. And by the way, with this kind of testing, 10% in one direction or another is still accurate. 49.5 is beautiful. And then here's our CBDA product, just to give you a comparison. We have mostly CBDA, but there's a little CBD in there. Again, there's some THCA, a little bit of CBGA, some THC, some CBG. And so again, you see this kind of nice broad blend of cannabinoids. This is the terpene profile from our CBD product. And you can see what are you looking for here. I'm not going to take the time tonight to go through all these different terpenes and postulate on what they might relate to in terms of clinical effects. But I think at a broad stroke, you want to see terpenes. You want to see a decent content of terpenes. This is 0.3% by weight. And you want to see a variety of terpenes. And that just shows you that it's a product that has not been highly processed or over processed, and the terpenes haven't evaporated. They're still there. And then what else do we want to look for? We want to look for contaminations. We want to make sure it passes safe levels of all of these solvents. And so you can see here, we do have a little ethanol in there from our extraction process. Now, this test found isopropanol in a very low quantity in our CBD product. We don't think that that's isopropanol, but I like to be transparent and show you what the lab said we have. We have no isopropanol in our factory. It's actually not at all toxic at these tiny doses, but it's probably some other compound that has a similar structure to isopropanol that actually comes from the cannabis plant, but we're not sure about that. But again, I like to be totally transparent and show you what's in our products. We don't have any heavy metals at all in our products, and that probably has something to do with the way we process and remove contaminants. We don't have any microbiologic contaminants, so no bacteria or yeast or mold. We don't have E. coli or salmonella. We don't have mold toxins, none detected, which is kind of hard to do with outdoor cannabis, but our process does that for us. We have 0 pesticides in our product. This is what you want to look for with any product. Any product maker that is making a good product should be very happy to show you these results. And if they don't, then I would wonder about the product. Okay, I've been going for a while now, and I definitely want to get to your questions, but I'm just going to walk you through the product line and explain what I created, because this formulary has been sitting on an imaginary shelf in my mind for the last decade. And now it's actually here in real life, and my patients are using it. And I'm just so overjoyed and excited that we've been able to accomplish this, and really just so thankful to the whole Healer team for making this dream come true, not just for me, but for my patients and for all of you. So this is the first formula. It's Night. It's made from a variety of sedating strains. It's THC dominant. It has some THCA in it, so it's a 6-to-1 ratio. It addresses symptoms that interfere with sleep, like anxiety, pain, restless limbs, nightmares, and more. It's great for helping stay asleep. If you need help falling asleep, you can try taking it earlier in the night, or just use a low dose of the right type of inhaled cannabis, and that'll help you fall asleep. And the Night formula will help you stay asleep. And it's also the best antispasmodic, proper THC dominant formula that we have. Now here's our pain formula. This was based on a discovery that I made in Maine probably 6-7 years ago already, where people were just raving about this one tincture that someone in Western Maine was making for pain. And when we analyzed it, we found that it was only half decarboxylated. And that really raised my eyebrow. What's this THCA doing? And it's doing a lot. In fact, I believe that it's making the THC more potent. So it's having a stronger analgesic pain relieving effect. But then also, as people use this for a long period of time, the anti-inflammatory effects of the THCA are taking down the baseline of pain. So there's this short-term relief and this long-term benefit. It's an amazing formula. So it's half THC, half THCA. One drop is 1 milligram, which means in one drop you get half a milligram of THC and half a milligram of THCA. It's designed not to be stimulating or sedating. We've blended the strain so it could be used anytime, but it's not like a real sleeper like the night formula is, which specifically has sedating properties. This is the balance formula. This is the most versatile. If you don't know where to start, this is where I would start. It's good for pain, it's good for nausea, for inflammation, for just about anything anyone wants to treat with cannabis. And it's our version of the classic one-to-one formula, where people are used to having equal parts of THC and CBD. Well, we have equal parts of those two, but we also add in equal parts of THCA and CBDA. And so just extremely versatile formula, very effective in low doses. People can't believe that they're only taking, you take 4 drops, that's 1 milligram of THC. People would never believe that that's just 1 milligram of THC. It feels stronger in terms of its pain relief, anti-nausea effects, but that's because of all these other compounds that are in there. And then Relief is our CBD dominant formula that we sell in the main market because we have the ability to include a little more THC in there to get better cost efficacy and better results overall. So if you're taking CBD, but you're at a high dose and it's getting expensive and you want to be able to take less, this would be the right formula for you, because that little extra bit of THC is going to give it a kick that makes it more powerful, but unless you take high doses of this, it's not going to cause impairment. So it's a really effective CBD formula at low doses. And it does, even though it doesn't say it on the box, when you look at the certificate of analysis, you'll see that we have included both THCA and CBDA in there. All of our products do include the acidic cannabinoids. This is the day formula. So this is for people that like the effects of THC, that it works well for them. They don't need to waste their money on CBD because the THCA works so good, or maybe they don't agree with CBD. It doesn't agree with them, I should say. And they want a THC formula that does not put them to sleep. So this is a stimulating, mood uplifting THC formula with some THCA in there. It's perfect for microdosing THC, and also perfect for people that appreciate the psychoactive effects. So for people that want to take a moderate or high dose of THC and experience that shift, that non-ordinary consciousness that allows them to maybe go deeper into their yoga practice or their prayer, or do better journaling, or connect with nature, or connect with God, or whatever that may be. Certainly inhaled cannabis is good for that application. This product is also kind of the ideal THC product if you want to use a higher dose, but really effective in non-psychoactive microdosing. And then this is the THCA formula. Some people just want to try adding THCA, or in some cases, in several cases, having to do with seizures and autism and dementia. Sometimes I'll specifically use THCA. This is a lower potency formula because some of my pediatric seizure patients need a very, very low dose, and I wanted to make that a little easier to measure. And then we have our Hemp Cbd and Cbda products. People ask me all the time, why should I use CBDA? What's the benefit of switching to that over the CBD? And the answer is basically, if CBD isn't satisfying at moderate doses and you don't want to keep spending money and cranking it up, you could try CBDA. It's typically more potent. And if you love THC and you don't want the CBD at all to block your THC effects, that's another reason to use CBDA, because it does not do that. Our CBDA formula has a very peppery taste, and that's the sensation of it actually contacting your mucous membranes and being absorbed. If people don't like that, you can literally just take a sip of water and it goes away. And then we also make capsules, which are super convenient. If you've titrated and found a dose that works for you, and you want to kind of replace that with capsules, we have Night that come in 5 milligram and 15 milligram caps. We have Relief, which are 10 milligrams. So in that 10 milligram cap, there's 2 of THC and 8 of CBD, roughly. There's also some of the acidic cannabinoids in there, but those are the rough measurements. And then the balance formula, 110 milligram cap, has 2.5 of THC, which for a lot of adults, that's kind of like right at the threshold of psychoactivity. Most people would use that and feel really good, but not impaired. And then it's got 2.5 milligrams of all the others. And then our nano filtered vape cartridge, which is a blend of lots of different varieties. We kind of put a lot of things in there. That's why it's called the Anytime. It's not sedating, it's not stimulating. It's just kind of a balanced vape cartridge, a balanced formula with as many of the trace cannabinoids and trace components as we could get in there. If you go to healercannabis.com, this is our store locator. You can see the map in Maine. We're having more places all the time that are selling our products. And we also have a delivery service that delivers, I think it's Brunswick to Kittery, so pretty much the southern part of the state. And we have a program called Healer Helps, which donates 1% of the suggested retail price to community education events and also to supporting patients that do really well with our formulas but can't quite afford them. We know that everybody has different resources, and we want to make sure that this is available to everyone. There's some promotions, some discounts at the following locations. So for our CBD products on the website, you get 20% off of your first order. In Maine, we have Canuvo, which is located in Biddeford, 20% off first purchase of Healer products. Curaleaf is located in Auburn, and then they have a sister dispensary in Ellsworth, 20% off of Healer products this month. And then Jar Cannabis, 15% off of Healer products, which ends just in a couple days. So I'm going to stop the screen share, return to all of your beautiful faces. I hope that that was helpful. And now I'm very happy to answer your questions. We can roll in to questions. I have a lot of previously submitted questions, but if you'd like to ask something live, it could be about the material that we covered or about something else. I'm very happy to field the live questions. Just put in the chat. I wanna ask a live question, and Simone will unmute you. And then while Simone is getting that queued up, I'm going to start with the previously submitted because we have so many questions. I'm going to do my best to answer these rapidly and not go on and on like I sometimes do. So the first question is from Suzanne. I have ulcerative colitis. Which of the products might help with that? Again, I want to make this very straightforward to you. If you're not sleeping well, use the Healer Night. And unless there's any reason to use something else, I would use the Healer Balance during the day because you're going to get all of these different compounds. So that's a pretty simple one. And now that I have everything up, I'm getting distracted by the chat, which it looks like there's great questions and good comments on there as well about the vape cartridge being ridiculously smooth and all sorts of things. So are we ready, Simone, for a live question, or shall I keep going with the previously submitted?
Yeah, we have a live question from Josephine.
All right, Josephine, where are you? There you are. Oh, looks like you're still muted. Give us a second. We'll get you there.
Here's a bit of a delay to unmute. Try again.
I am loving seeing all your faces on here. There's a lot of familiar, but a lot of new ones too. Welcome to you all. I'm so glad to have you here tonight. But Josephine, you're still muted. Maybe we're having some. Oh, there we go. Hi. It looks like you're unmuted now.
Here, how are you?
Great. You know it. Wait, how am I? I'm 10. What was I? I'm 8, 7, and 10. That's how I am. 8, 7, and 10. That's the inner inventory. I comment on this in the Healer training program because we have and I do it myself to people. I try not to, but we have this in our culture, we have this very invasive question, how are you? And then everybody answers it kind of non-authentically. And then when I hear that, I'm like, wait, there's got to be a better way to answer this. So I think if you start answering that question with your inner inventory scores and you actually take a minute to check your scores when people ask you that, people are going to wonder what's going on, but then you can explain it to them and maybe teach them something. Sorry I said no tangents, but now I'm doing it. Go ahead, Josephine.
Well, first of all, I wanted to ask, do we have access to your THCA products, or can we only get the CBD and CBDA outside of?
Yeah, sadly, we don't ship them.
That's what I figured, so I wanted to ask.
Great question. Thank you. Now, I am not going to get political today, but maybe this is the year where we get to start shipping THC or THCA. You never know. It looks like maybe we're going in that direction. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm sure eventually we're going to get there.
So, my frustration with Florida products. I've expressed that before. We do have access to one THCA product, and it's a THCA powder by Blue River. I don't know if you know Tony Verzura.
I
Uh,
don't. Oh, maybe I do.
um,
Do.
so I reached out. Now, Florida is really interesting because it's sold as a THCA product, but really honestly, the intention is to be able to ramp up THC because we kind of go between we're strictly medicinal, but people still use for recreational or adult use purposes. So, anyways, um, so they sell the THCA product, but of course, they give the instructions for administration to apply heat to it, which I know changes it to THC, and then the patients aren't going to get the benefit from the THCA.
Right.
So I reached out to Tony and I asked him, how can I use this with an elder patient to like get the true THCA benefit? He told me that it could be it can be administered sublingually, so it's a powder.
Yep.
Um, but he also told me, and I wanted to see what your perspective is, that if it's vaporized, it won't heat it to a level where it will do the conversion.
You'll get some conversion. So it's a good point. You know, in they what they used to do, this is interesting, to test to see if someone is using herbal cannabis or if they're using prescription THC from the pharmacy, is check to see if they had any THCA in their urine. Some labs are still using that, others are using THCV, because when you smoke cannabis, there's going to be a temperature gradient. So like right where the fire hits the cannabis is going to be the hottest, but then eventually there's going to be a temperature where the THCA vaporizes but does not decarboxylate. So that, I don't know exactly what that temperature is, and it's actually not just a single temperature, it's a combination of temperature and time of exposure to that temperature. But you can get some vaporized THCA, and I think that could be done carefully. You absolutely will get some decarboxylation, but I think that it's possible having a THCA product like that to vaporize at low temperatures and get some inhaled. But for your application, I think just adding it to food or dissolving it in a little oil so that you have a known potency and then taking it by mouth is a really acceptable way. And for everyone else that hasn't tried THCA before and might not have access to it, just make some cannabis tea. It's amazing. And if you're too busy to make tea, take the tiniest little bud and just eat it. If you're growing cannabis in the summer and the fall when it's growing, it's going to save you from having to trim and deal with all those little tiny buds that are low down on the branches. Just go out there every morning and pop one in your mouth and eat it. That stuff has, it's that fresh. It has very low content of THC. It's not going to risk causing impairment with an unknown dose of THC. So thank you, Josephine. I'm sorry for your Florida frustrations. I know there's a lot of folks that are feeling that things are going to change. While we're queuing up the next one, I'm just going to switch to previously submitted, which is suggestions for chronic daily migraines from Brittany. Great question. So this is where dose layering really comes into play. We want to prevent the migraines, but we also want to treat them acutely when they occur. Now, as far as acute treatment, I've had lots of patients over the years express that if they have a migraine coming on and they can get some inhaled cannabis as early as possible into their system, they can either abort it or maximize or minimize the intensity of it. And then a subset of patients report that if they wait too long and they use cannabis deeper into the migraine, it can actually make the migraine worse. And so it's timing is really important, but that's the acute treatment. Now, the prevention would be using cannabis to get great sleep. So I would go with it, again, a THC dominant product at night, and then either a balanced product or a CBD product, a CBD dominant product in the morning. And I just say that because I've had a number of migraine patients that really feel, and other types of headaches for that matter, that really feel like CBD is preventative. And that probably has to do with some of its effects, could have to do with its effects on the vascular supply of the brain. You guys, I love this. We have so many questions in the chat and so many people tuned in tonight. Thank you. It's really wonderful to have you all here. Who's next live?
We have Kimberly next.
All right, Kimberly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay,
can hear you and see you. Hello.
thank you. Hi, I live in Indiana, and there's we're only able to get like full spectrum items, so like 0.3% THC involved, but there's been a whole outbreak of like the Delta 8 products. Can you talk a little bit about what the difference that might be for people and if there's any difference at all in effectiveness as far as that goes?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with that,
Okay.
but I'll tell you what I know. So Delta 8 THC is very similar to Delta 9 THC. It does occur in the plant in very low levels, but to get a product that's predominantly Delta 8, it's made in a laboratory. And so right off the bat, you're risking whatever that laboratory may or may not have done right in that chemical conversion. And it acts a lot like THC, like the regular Delta 9 THC in the body. It may be a little bit less impairing or less psychoactive, maybe a little bit weaker. I expect that there's going to be some people that find it's better for them and some people that find it's not as good for them. So it's a variant. And yeah, it's hard to be in Indiana. Where in Indiana are you?
In Carmel, a city called Carmel.
Yeah, I know Carmel. So I grew up in Chicago. I went to school in Bloomington, and
Yeah.
my whole career in cannabis got started in Indiana. I was eventually the president of the Citizens Alliance for the Legalization of Marijuana back in 1997 in Bloomington, Indiana, and I know you're still working hard on this project. Indiana is a challenging state, I'm sure, but
I think we've been using it for a long time, but it's just not been legal. So it's gone way underground, like deep underground. So
yes,
like,
well,
thank you. So it's
I
like more
feel
like a synthetic version of it. Is that what you're saying? It's kind of like a synthetic version, like a
yeah, it is.
THC or
It
something.
is, but it's not like the designer drug synthetic version, the synthetic cannabinoids. It's not dangerous
Okay.
like those, as far as I know. Those can be extremely potent and have really bad side effects. So it's safer than those synthetics, like the K2 and the spice and that kind of stuff. But it's, you have to deal with what did they do in that laboratory.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. As we get the next live question queued up, when are you coming out with a topical lotion or cream for people that have skin disorders? So we are going through our prototypes right now to figure out how to fine tune our formula and make it great. Hopefully we'll have a nice hydrogel soon that people can use topically. But in the meanwhile, what I suggested earlier is just take some of those oral drops and try using them topically, and you get a sense of if you're likely to respond to that. All right. Next live one.
Yeah, we have Aaron next.
Okay.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, there I can hear you and see you. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Dr. Sulak. Aloha from Hawaii.
Yeah, aloha.
I just wanted to ask you a question. I've been working with a lot of cancer patients recently that ask questions about medical cannabis, and I've noticed how CBDA and CBDA and THCA have like come more into the picture. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on how I just tell them if you don't have access to it, which we really don't have that much access to it here, just use flour and make a tea. Could you please elaborate on something that might be helpful?
Yes, absolutely. And so, and I think this applies to kind of both categories of cancer patients, which certainly have overlap. There, some are trying to use cannabis to just address their symptoms and the side effects of the treatment they're going through, and then others are trying to use cannabis in a way that might actually affect the course of their cancer and kill the cancer or halt its progression. And so just addressing both of those, I think one of the biggest needs that people have from cannabis during active conventional cancer treatment is to mitigate the nausea and the vomiting. And both THCA and CBDA are incredible anti-nausea agents that are more, THC is too, of course, THC is great, but these acidics are effective in tiny doses. They're very powerful. And so I think it's important for them to have access to that. As far as how we could kill the cancer with cannabis, if we can do that, there's a lot of unknowns, right? So we are years or decades away from saying, oh, you have this type of cancer with this type of genetic makeup and so forth, and here's some other things about you. Here's the right type of cannabis to help kill your cancer. It's going to take a long time. So our decisions now are informed by those unknowns. And what we have learned from animal studies and from petri dish, cell culture studies, is that there are some trace cannabinoids that are very effective in helping kill the cancer or prevent the cancer's growth. And some of those are very dependent on the acidic cannabinoids like THCA and CBDA, as well as CBG, seems to be very important in certain cancer cell lines. And then some of these cannabinoids that are very important aren't even named yet, that they literally just have letters and numbers for names because nobody's even looking for them in any of the labs right now. And so, yeah, my advice for people like that is, since you don't even know what you're looking for, you want to do it all, right? So blend a salad of different varieties together. Don't rely on a single strain, and make sure that you're not fully decarbing so that you can get some CBDA and THCA. And right now, that's the best we got. And then the other thing that I would suggest, and we had some previously submitted questions about this, using very high doses to treat cancer. And so, I will say that in my clinical experience, cancer patients, I've seen them do the best typically when they combine cannabis with conventional therapy, because they're more likely to sail through the treatment, whether it's chemo or radiation or both, and more likely to be able to complete the course of treatment and feel good while doing it, prevent the side effects from the treatment, like neuropathy and other things like that can be permanent and debilitating. But I do see sometimes people using just cannabis and alternative medicine and still getting an anti-cancer effect. What I want to the two messages that I want to put out there for everyone listening tonight is that if you're using a high dose of cannabis to treat cancer, you need to have some form of surveillance. I want to know if that cancer is responding or not responding. Because if your cancer if the progression stops or it starts to shrink, beautiful, keep doing what you're doing. But if there's no evidence of effectiveness in that treatment, I don't recommend continuing it, because you could be, to some extent, suppressing your body's immune response to that cancer. We don't want to do that. And I have seen cases where low and moderate doses of cannabis can affect the cancer as well. And then the second thing I want to say is that there's a kind of a pharmacologic strategy of fighting cancer called cancer immunotherapies. These are drugs that stimulate the immune system. It's probably, the data that we have right now is suggesting it's not good to mix cannabis with those drugs, because those drugs are designed to cause inflammation in the body, and that inflammation attacks the cancer, but cannabis is an anti-inflammatory, and so that's probably not a good mix.
Right.
Thanks, Aaron.
That was kind of my follow-up question. I'd asked that before, but I was too bashful to ask you face to face.
Oh, good.
It's good to finally meet you. Thank you so much for answering the question. I just love the learning that I'm getting from you, the education I'm getting from you, and the modules. I did the modules yesterday on cancer, and so I wanted to follow up with that. But thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I acknowledge that, Aaron. Thank you. Great questions. Okay, we've got Linda who submitted a question. When are you coming out? Oh, I don't know. That was that one. So Andrea said, I only use tincture, but no one has been able to tell me what a dropper full is. Is it the halfway mark? Is it the full thing? It's just crazy that people are asking these questions and dealing with it. If somebody's making a medicinal product, you want the user to be able to know how much they're getting. So the viscosity and the carrier oil can determine how many drops are in 1 milliliter. Sometimes you can have a thick cannabis solution that makes big drops, and it's like 20 drops equals a milliliter. For ours, it's 50 drops equals a milliliter. There's a lot of other variables, like the size of the dropper and all sorts of things. These are things like you shouldn't, as a consumer, have to go out and buy a graduated cylinder that measures 1 milliliter and count the number of drops until it fills up that graduated cylinder. That's the job of the manufacturer. And if they're not going to do that for you, then I think you might want to shop somewhere else. All right, next live question.
So Dustin, Ken had a question, but he can't use his camera because he's at work.
Okay.
What formula would be best if he's on the road all day driving? Something with THC, but nothing that would be too impairing.
Yeah.
It's a broken back and needs something that would help with the pain.
Got it. So what I want to point out to begin with is that For years here in Maine, before CBD came on the scene and it was available at all, we achieved this goal with just THC. So you can do this with THC. There might be a narrow therapeutic window, but with precision dosing, you can get inside that window. So I don't want you to think that that you need anything super complex, but just, you know, not knowing more about your case, Ken, and hearing what you're suggesting. My next questions clinically would be, have you tried CBD? Do you think it does anything for you? Do you need that kind of focus and alertment? Probably that would be good for you while driving so you can stay alert. And so I would probably use the relief formula, which again is 4 parts CBD, 1 part THC. It's going to be useful for pain and for staying awake and alert and focused. So that's probably where I would start with you, but I'd probably ask some more questions. But yeah, you can get inside the therapeutic window with just THC. And so if you're looking for the most cost-effective treatment for pain, I would probably encourage you to use our pain formula, which again is half THC, half THCA. Each drop contains 0.5 milligram of THC. That's usually a good increment to adjust at. It's very unlikely that you're going to go up by 0.5 milligram and suddenly get this, you know, psychoactive effect that's too strong for you. And I say that, and I'm going to go to a question that was submitted about that previously, but it's very unlikely for that to happen. Now let's just address the other elephant in the room. Is it safe to use cannabis while driving? It's a good question. Is it safe to use any psychoactive substance while driving? And the answer is yes. You know, and we tell the same thing to people with all sorts of drugs, including antihistamines and benzodiazepines and opioids and everything else. Don't drive or operate machinery until you know for sure how this dose of this medicine affects you personally. There is no blood test that you can do to tell you if you're impaired on cannabis, Benadryl, or oxycodone. The only blood test is alcohol. That's the only place it's effective. But here's the story with cannabis. Study after study that's looking at either real world driving or driver simulation, and we've covered several of them in the last year or so on the Healer training webinars, they show that when people are impaired on cannabis, they know that they're impaired. In fact, they tend to rate their impairment more strongly than it actually is. They think they're more impaired than they really are. They're extra cautious. They're more likely to slow down or to pull over. So unless there's some problem with executive function in the brain, like planning and understanding, or some challenge with self-awareness, most people are going to know if they've taken a dose of cannabis that they should not be using behind the wheel. And so I feel very safe that my medical patients are using cannabis and driving, at least most of them that fit that description. Okay, so now I'm going to skip down to this other case. So this is from Sergio. Dear Dr. Sulak, I'm a big fan of your website. I've been using THC oil for the treatment of anxiety. I did microdosing for 1 month with good results at 2 milligrams of THC orally once every morning. However, on 2 occasions, I increased the dose to 2.5 milligrams of THC. And I did experience very unpleasant results: tachycardia, which is rapid heart rate, high blood pressure, paranoia, and strong anxiety. I wonder why a small increment of only 0.5 milligram could trigger such a big difference in the medical outcome. This is very unusual, but I'm reporting this now because cannabis is very unusual. And, you know, in this field, I expect the unexpected. I'm not surprised by this story, but I'll tell you, I've rarely heard of this before. So maybe you are ultra sensitive to THC, but if that were the case, then I would expect your kind of anti-anxiety dose to be lower, to be more like a 1 milligram. So why there's such a big difference between 2 and 2.5, I'm not sure. I encourage you to try it again. You know, see if there's sediment in the bottom. Maybe you sucked up more. Maybe you made an error with the dosing. I don't know, but I you know, report that here because we don't have an explanation for everything. Everyone's different, and I'm so happy that you could still have that effect and know that 2 milligrams works well for you. You found your optimal dose. Don't go to 2.5. You're good at 2. You know, that's a good way to be. Okay, let's do a live question.
All right, Tara's next.
Hi, Dustin.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Taru.
I asked this very early on. What I wanted to know was, can CBDA ameliorate some of the side effects of high doses of prednisone, which my husband was put on in the hospital from a myasthenia gravis exacerbation. And the prednisone is really being hard on him.
Is it the mental effects or physical or both?
It's both. Mental is Mr. Grumpy, anyway, and physical is he feels like he's urinating a lot more, and he thinks he has maybe some diabetic issues cropping up, because that's what can happen with prednisone.
It's a great question. As I think this through, I can't really identify based on my understanding of how the cortisol, how the prednisone causes those symptoms, how CBDA might help, or CBD. You know, I'm not sure. Let me think about this for one more moment. There is something teasing my mind from John McPartland's 2014 paper called Care and Feeding of the Endocannabinoid System. And there was something in there about corticosteroid-induced mania. And I can't remember what it is, but there may be a lead in that paper. If you're interested in scientific papers and you haven't read that one yet, that is the one to read. It's an incredible paper. So that's John McPartland, Care and Feeding of the Endocannabinoid System, 2014. There may be a clue for you, but I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Okay, and part of that was then the next part was we have your CBDA, which I take and he takes. And I wondered, based on what you were saying earlier, if we could mix it with our THC. We just had our first crop, yay, of regular, cannabis plants. And if we could make our THCA and mix it up, would it be good?
I like that. I think THC and CBDA make a great combination.
Yes.
That they're very synergistic with each other. I know everyone loves CBD and THC, and that's a different strategy. But yeah, I mean, come back and report to us what you think of that. But I think that's a great idea.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Want to give a shout out to my old strength training coach, Ed, who just popped out in the first page of my screen here. Ed, I'm just so happy to see you every time I see you. Ed really helped me when I was a teenager, learn to control my body and focus and get stronger and be devoted and dedicated. It was awesome having you in my life, Ed. So thank you. Let's see. I'll probably do another previously submitted question. Okay, so this is interesting. I have a question about how to figure dosage from an edible. RSO, which means kind of Rick Simpson oil, but it's talking about a very concentrated cannabis, 1 gram that is 80%, compared with 100 milligram THC capsule by Grassroots. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the math here, but again, wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to do this math? So if you have a gram of a concentrate and it's 80% THC by weight, that means you have 800 milligrams of THC in that gram. And now you want to get 100 milligrams of THC all by itself, you would take that gram and divide it into 8. So basically 1/8 of a gram. So that's how you do the math there. Okay. Who's next? Simone, you can just throw them on and whenever they're ready, and we'll just address their questions after I'm done with the previously submitted.
Okay, yeah, Ruth is ready.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Sulak. I was wondering how long the night capsule's effectiveness is. I take a chocolate nighttime formula from New Hampshire, and it's a 30-minute to 360. And when I take it, then it takes 30 minutes to take effect. So I'm taking it at 9. I'm waking up at 3 often. So I was wondering if yours was any different.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of variability. I expect that same capsule you're taking in a different person might affect one differently. What we do find is that compared to the oils taken by mouth with the drops, the capsules do seem to last a little bit longer. And so since you're looking for longer duration of action, I would encourage you to try the caps. How many milligrams do you use THC wise?
10.
Okay. So yeah, I'd be really interested, if you do have access to the Healer products, to hear your experience. Again, our products seem to be a lot stronger than others. So I'd also be curious, like if 5 milligrams of THC in one of our capsules is equivalent to 10 of one of those, or if you would need more than that. But yeah, I think, the goal is to get people 6 to 8 hours of a good effect. so that it's just wearing off when you wake up after a great night's sleep. That's the goal. And you know, sometimes people do have to take another dose later in the night, or some people will take kind of like an evening dose after dinner and then another dose just right before they go to sleep in order to kind of, you know, spread that effect out longer throughout the night.
Yeah, sometimes if I wake up before 3, like anytime between 12 and 2, I'll take a tincture of 1 milligram more. And that sometimes will carry me to like 4:30 or
Yeah.
5. But I'd like to get the 8 hours, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, maybe, I mean, everyone's different, and it seems like you kind of burn through that a little more rapidly. I think you're taking the right approach, and maybe since you're doing 10 before bed, maybe more than one or one in the middle of the night, maybe like a 2 or 3 milligram in the middle of the night. So you could try to stretch that out. That might be something I recommend if you were a patient here. But yeah, these are the challenges in cannabis medicine, right? You're on the right track. You got a hot lead. You got a product that's getting you better sleep. It's just not lasting all night. So now what are we going to do to fine tune that and tweak that for you? And so some of my ideas, well, let me ask you about the capsule. Do you know what the matrix is? Like, is it just ground up powdered herbal material, or is it in some kind of a oil or a gel? What's going on there?
I'm not sure. I have the label in the other room, but it doesn't say if it's a powder or an oil, so I don't know.
And when you look at it, what does it look like?
Just like a little, like a regular supplement capsule, you know,
Okay.
a gelatin capsule.
Got it.
But I usually take a chocolate square,
Oh, that's right. It was the chocolate square. Got it.
which is a 20 milligram. When I feel like that's not working, I switch to the capsule
I see.
for like a week, and then I'll go back to the chocolate, and that seems to help.
I see.
Probably different combinations in them.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my other thing that I wonder for you is, if you went up, like, have you, so, and this I think is good for a lot of people to understand, have you gone beyond that dose at night? Like, have you actually gone up until you get a little over the line? And by that, I mean, like, you wake up to go to the bathroom and you're feeling like, whoa, I had a little too much THC tonight, or there's some other communication from your body that now you've gone too high on the THC dose. Have you had that?
I think I did at one point, but part of the reason I won't go up is because of the cost,
Got it.
you know, so I'm trying to limit and just not get to a point that it's too much.
Yep, I understand. So I asked that question because it's possible that a higher dose or a more potent product that delivers a higher dose more effectively to you would actually keep you asleep the whole night and not make you wake up and take a second dose in the middle of the night, right? I don't think that we could say you may not have explored your full dosing range yet, because I think for a lot of people to explore that range, you actually have to step out of it just a little bit, like a toe over the line in the bowling alley, and then, you know, come back in, and you haven't been there yet, but I get that cost can be prohibitive.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Great question, Ruth. I think that was instructive. So now I'm going to respond to a question about from Cynthia. Oh, no, so that was asking about migraines. We already talked about migraines. So, but I guess the one question was, if the migraines start with nausea, medical cannabis does not help with that symptoms. If later during migraines, it does help. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure of what to make of that, but it sounds like there's two different presentations of the migraine there, and one type responds better to cannabis than the other, and people can be quite variable there. I'm getting distracted by the chat. I see Fabiana saying hello from Argentina, where we met in Chile with Fundación Daya. So great to maintain my connection with Latin America. Thank you for saying hello. Do we have a live question here? Is it Holly? Are you up?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, great. I see you.
Hi, Dustin. You look great. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about a patient I'm working with CLL leukemia, and his major problem, his main issue at this point is appetite. He's been losing a tremendous amount of weight. So I'm trying to find a combination of CBG and THC for him. He's unfortunately a little sensitive to THC, which would, be ideal. And wonder if you have any experience with any of the other cannabinoids that might help him with his appetite, or you think that that combination would be good for him.
I don't. So yeah, this is a challenging case, and I wonder if you can microdose THC in a way that is acceptable to him, because it has been shown that CBD can mitigate the appetite stimulating effects of THC. On its own, CBD doesn't tend to have much of an appetite stimulating effect, and it can actually, I think it can in some people, and that's probably indirectly through the endocannabinoid system. But
Yeah, I'm
oh,
actually
go
talking
ahead.
CBG, not
CBD,
CBD.
yeah,
CBG for him.
got it. So then, the question, which as far as I know hasn't been answered, is does CBG act similarly at the CB1 receptor to also block some of that THC-like activity? And I don't know. I'd love to hear your experience, because no one has reported yet to me that CBG has stimulated appetite. I think I have an N of 1 where I did, get some CBG flower and inhale it at a significant quantity, and I didn't notice any appetite stimulation in myself. So I'm not sure if CBG is going to do that. It's challenging. Can you get like half or quarter milligram increments of THC into him in a tolerable way?
I think it's worth a try. And I think the other challenge for him is he's asthmatic. So he can't really inhale, which is too bad. But I did find a tincture that has a combination of CBG, THC, THCA, and CBDA. And I'm going to try that. And hopefully that will be something that will help him. But
Yeah, please report back. I'm really curious. I mean, yeah, right. You're thinking about this the right way. Like, number one, what's the best way to stimulate appetite is inhaled THC. So he's got two things against him for that. That's that he doesn't do well with inhalation, even though there's a chance you can get a little bit of flower vapor in him, and it might. I do want to remind you that cannabis cigarettes were sold in U.S. pharmacies and around the world for treating asthma. Even just harsh cannabis smoke. I mean, back then it probably wasn't this, perfectly cured stuff, and that could actually help with asthma, probably after causing a little exacerbation and some coughing and getting that phlegm out, and then dilating the airways. So, it's possible that a low temperature cannabis vapor, maybe THC dominant, but just a tiny little sip of it, that might do the trick. That's probably what I would try, actually. And then I see. Oh, go ahead.
Kind of work on his confidence level, because along with all the other things he's got going on, he also has some coronary artery disease. So, for him, it's a little bit scary. He's had some experience with inhaled THC back in the day, but he's a little reluctant at this point to try that. But I think that a tiny dose might be good and may help him relax a little bit too. If I can warn him about the possibility that he may have some tachycardia, that he could expect that to happen, but he's not going to die, from that. That might help.
Yeah, that's so right. And so, to kind of prevent that or mitigate that, I would make sure that he's, sitting or lying down in a relaxed, kind of body position. So he's not putting increased cardiac demand and creating that kind of swing in the autonomic function that might occur. But one little sip might do the trick. Well,
Okay,
and I mean that like off a vaporizer, just like the tiniest little bit of THC vapor might do the trick.
got it. And any particular strain that you can think of that might be good for him?
No, maybe I've taken the easy way out of stopping paying attention to strain names. I feel like in May, I do still ask my patients what strains are they using and what's working the best. And I feel like I just observe trends that only have something to do with what's available at the moment, and then that kind of changes. So, as always, I usually recommend going to the person who's selling this stuff and say, hey, people that use this for appetite, what do they keep coming back and buying more of? And shooting in that direction.
Sounds good. Well, I'm in California, so he's got a lot of choices. So that's a good thing.
Good. Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you, Holly, for the
Thank you
question.
so much.
And then, yeah, I saw a little comment in the chat related to this question, which was from Anne, and she answered her own question, which is perfect. What about THCV? And then the answer is no, it looks like that's also an appetite suppressant. Absolutely. THCV and CBD can both suppress appetite. All right. Wow, we keep going. Okay, you go ahead and line one up, Simone. I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet. What does current research say about any potential harm to the liver for users of THC, CBDA, and CBD? So, just in a nutshell, we have some human evidence that the liver can be irritated by very high doses of CBD when used over a prolonged period of time. So I'm talking like triple digit number of milligrams per day, and it's only in a subset of people that we don't understand what makes them predisposed. There's actually just one study that's shown this, and we covered it either last month or prior in the Healer training program. Lots of evidence that people who use CBD in low and moderate doses never have any problems with liver damage. And that's especially when they don't use it in combination with valproic acid, the seizure medicine. There seems to be an interaction there that bothers the liver. As far as THC goes, there's no evidence. There used to be a tiny bit of evidence that showed that people with advanced hepatitis who use THC may be more likely to advance, and then subsequent data came out and said it's the opposite thing that's happening. It's that people that get more advanced hepatitis are more likely to use THC. It doesn't seem to be a causal relationship there. So next question from the same person, Martin. I'm refrigerating your CBD and CBDA drops. Is it necessary to also refrigerate the THC drops? How long will they last refrigerated versus unrefrigerated? So yeah, that's a great question. It's a very slow conversion. So I don't want people to worry about keeping our products cold all the time. If you leave it overnight out on the counter and then you come back to it, it's going to be essentially the same as it was the day before, unless you live in a really hot place, unlike Maine. But I think what we found is that if you leave it out for 6 months, it's going to decarboxylate basically at room temperature. So give it a month and you're going to have a slightly different formula at the end of that month, but it's not going to be, drastically different. So if you want it to affect you the same way it did when you first bought it, keep it in the fridge as much as possible. Don't carry it around in your pocket, but if you have to throw it in your backpack or purse or something and take it out with you for the day, it's not going to change drastically unless it's a hot summer day. Okay, next live question.
Justin, Adam, and I think there were quite a few previously submitted questions on this topic. Crohn's and colitis, what would be the best formulas that you recommend for that or treatment?
Got it. Yep, there was it, and okay. So, and Adam, is Adam live or just asked you that on the chat?
Yeah, ask you. He preferred.
Okay. Yeah, so Crohn's and colitis, I like the balanced formulas. I've absolutely found that including the acidic cannabinoids are helpful in those conditions. I think that we used to kind of have this theoretic strategy of let's try to get the cannabinoids down into the gut more. And, some people have tried formulating them with high content of soluble fiber in preparations to get them there. And based on my experience now, I don't think that that's a really important strategy. I think just get it into your blood, and then the blood supply to the colon is the best way to deliver it there, not directly in the lumen of the colon. And there's actually, so I have this research that hasn't been published yet, but I've been communicating with the researcher because I was writing a book chapter on this topic, where it looks like CB1 receptors have the opposite physiologic effect on the colon, depending on whether they're stimulated from inside the colon, like from the food that you eat, or from the outside of the colon, from the blood supply. And so that it looks like stimulating from the blood supply is more likely to enhance the integrity of the colon and stop that leaky gut kind of a thing going on. So I think, long answer, but the balanced product is exactly where I would start, because the THC, CBD, THCA, and CBDA could all be very helpful there. Okay, so another question submitted by Sarah. My husband has bad back pain due to metastatic bone prostate cancer. CBD didn't work, just started using RSO. Again, this is a concentrated THC product, and it appears to help. My question is, He started chemo 2 weeks ago because PSA was over 400. At the dispensary, they said it is okay to use KSO while RSO while on chemo, docetaxel every 21 days. My comments are appreciated. So yeah, that class of chemotherapy, there's no contraindication that anyone's aware of, and as far as I know, to use cannabis. You can use cannabis and have the chemotherapy. And now that's a class of drug that can produce peripheral neuropathy. And in animal studies, they've been shown that you can prevent that by giving CBD and still give it. So animal models of neuropathy, to create that symptom in the rodents, they actually give them these type of chemotherapy drugs because they're just so well known to produce that neuropathic pain. So I think it's, yeah, go right ahead, use THC, use CBD. Cannabis, it should be an individualized treatment, but cannabis is a good match for that treatment setting as far as I know. And then I'll also emphasize, we talked about some of that preclinical literature that showed how little we know about how to treat cancer with cannabis. Well, one finding in the study from Dedi Meiri in Israel was that he looked at two different types of prostate cancer, two different cell lines. One was very responsive to THC. The other was almost not responsive to THC at all, but THCA killed it. And so how do we know what type of cancer you have that, compares to this research? We just don't. So you would want to use THC and THCA. Okay, next question.
Linda is next.
Linda.
Hello.
Hello, I heard you, Linda, but I don't see you yet. But if
Probably on another page, maybe.
yes, keep talking and you should pop to my first page. That usually happens.
I'm moving.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I got you. You're here. Hi, Linda.
I'm new to this, but I am in Southern Maine.
Great.
I have a couple of different questions. I would like you to speak a little bit more on the CBG. You kind of came in and got all of it at Sheepscott Farm, and I was hoping to try some of it.
I stole your CBG from Sheepscott? No way.
I got some Boax and I got some CBD stuff, but so I'm curious about that. And a good source for decarboxylating and how long for what effects you want. I haven't been on your stuff, so do you have a good source yourself, or
Yeah, so on the CBG side, we don't make that yet. I don't think we bought everything they had, so I can't take full credit for their lack of availability. But I think that, so there's a handful of companies from California that I semi-trust using, just because one of my colleagues, Bonnie Goldstein out there, told me this is what she's seeing the best results with, and that's the only information I have. And one of them is Flower Child. There's, I think that's the one that, at least last time I talked to her, she was using the most. But I'm sure there's several CBG products out there, and I don't want to endorse a company because I have no idea how good their process is. But use the tips I gave you today to explore them and see if you can get a good certificate of analysis and answer the right questions. Okay.
Right now, you're still in testing CBG?
Yeah, we haven't made it yet. We're going to. I don't have a timeline on it yet. It's not our. We actually just did another run of CBD, but we'll be getting there. We're growing slowly, doing our best to keep up. So the question was, what about CBG and how would people use it?
What is it good for?
What is it good for?
I do THC. I have chronic pain, and I make my own, and I typically do a 1-to-4 THC to CBD. Sometimes 1/3 to 2/3 thereabouts, and it works well. But I'm just curious what CBG. Also, my husband is more of a he needs to be happy.
Okay, so so far my experience with CBG is that it's a lot like CBD, but more relaxing and more potent, milligram for milligram.
Okay.
That's about the simplest and best explanation I can give you. So for people that are agitated, I find it especially useful in people with autistic spectrum disorders who may benefit from CBD in terms of their kind of cognition and communication and things like that, but they get kind of hyperactive on the CBD. CBG does not seem to cause that restlessness and hyperactivity. Otherwise, I think it's quite similar to the CBD. So that's a great question. And then as far as I'm pulling it up because I have this as a template and I haven't even written it out for so long. So usually what we recommend for decarboxylation to patients that are making homemade things is 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 hours. And I would even maybe go less if you wanted to have less of a decarb effect, you know, and maintain some of those acidic cannabinoids. But I think what we found using that basic formula, and so this is cannabis that's in oil, right? So these are people that are making direct oil infusions, put the bud in the oil, get it to about 250, check it with the cooking thermometer, and let it sit there for about 3 hours. You're going to get it mostly decarbed, but not fully. That's been our experience.
I tend to do the alcohol tinctures.
So you're going, got it. So you're going to decarb it in the oven.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yes, great question. So I don't have that at the tip of my fingers. Maybe someone else can comment on the chat what they use for oven temperature and time.
In your oil, is it a different time for a CBD flower as opposed to the THC flower?
The decarboxylation curve of CBD is a little bit different. It is. I think it, gosh, you're asking me all these good questions. I've been able to outsource this to my laboratory experts recently, and I deal with the clinical stuff, not the kitchen stuff. But you're getting me back into the kitchen, which is important. I believe that CBD decarboxylates at a lower temperature, but I can't remember if that's right. And other people can comment. I bet we have some folks here that are really, yeah. Okay, good. So then the other thing is that you could just decarb liberally and then add that into your alcohol, and then you could put some raw bud into the alcohol as well. But
I was intrigued with this whole raw bud thing, so I have a small question about the tea.
Yeah, about tea. Tea is great.
Can you make it in a large batch and just put it in the fridge?
Nope.
You have to drink it as you make it.
You do. It'll precipitate out and stick to the container when it gets cold and when it sits around. But one study showed that adding coffee creamer did stabilize it for at least 24 hours.
Yeah. I'll just drink it.
And then also a warning about the tea is that if you put a fat containing something in the tea, like if you put whole milk or cream or something in your tea, you're probably going to get more THC content. And so I wouldn't drink that before going to work, because the THC is more fat soluble.
So you can make your tea and put a little pat of canna butter in it.
That too. I mean, if you want a stronger effect, absolutely. But for a good THCA tea, just a little bud, like the size of a pencil eraser or a pea is all it takes. Throw it in, of course it'll grow when it gets wet, and steep it for 5 minutes and drink it. That's an easy way to get, maybe 10 to 20 milligrams of THCA.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions. Couldn't answer them all, but that does happen. All right.
Nice.
Okay, yes, and I see that Holly mentioned Miriam's Hope for CBG, and that is another favorite from Dr. Goldstein. And thank you for bringing that up. It wasn't on the tip of my mind, but that is another one that we recommend. All right, we better wrap it up soon. It's been a long day. I started seeing patients at 9, and you can see how much I love this. We're still going today. So next question is about, am I familiar with Tommy Chong's Nano type of CBD? All I would say, and I've said this many times before, is that I expect that there are ways to formulate cannabinoids to get better absorption, better bioavailability, and if they're priced right, then maybe you can save money by getting that higher bioavailability. But what I am just cautious about is that there's a lot of claims out there, and if somebody's making claims about their absorption rate and they don't have the clinical data to support that, then I think that's really, that doesn't look good, right? Don't make claims unless you've actually done the studies and proven how much better it is absorbed. And there's only a couple companies that have done that I've seen published, and I'm watching the literature for it. So the other thing people should know is that it's been shown that taking THC or CBD with food that contains fat, you can increase your absorption by 2 to 5 fold. So do we really need a lot of technology and more expensive types of things to increase this bioavailability, or can you just take it with a little bit of fat-containing snack? So I'm open to that, but I haven't seen that Tommy Chong's product has been clinically validated to have a certain level of bioavailability. All right, we'll do a couple more live questions. I'm going to sign out at 9 tonight. Okay. And while we're waiting for whoever's next, I will jump into the next one just to take advantage.
I do believe
yes.
I do believe it's me. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you
Hi,
so
Becca.
much. Hi. Wow, what a thoughtful line of products you've put together, Dr. Dustin.
Thank
Really
you.
spectacular. You know, I love your literature review, and I kind of missed it tonight, but it was really good hearing about your line.
We're gonna do that. We're not skipping literature review. We're gonna get that in January. I might not have set a date yet, but it's coming.
Oh, good. As a practitioner, I really count on that. In regard to personalized treatment, I'm wondering how you see genomics testing vis-a-vis cannabis.
Yes. So first of all, there's a lot of understanding about these gene variants in the cannabinoid system, which I think is just so premature in terms of putting that together with personalized recommendations. I think we're a long ways from being able to do that accurately, but also you have to start somewhere. And so I think it makes sense to gather data, meaning looking at big populations, seeing what types of genes they have for the cannabinoid receptors and the enzymes that build and break down the cannabinoids in the body, and then determining, are there people with these variants that seem to respond better to certain types of cannabis treatment? I think that we are going to see that. And then once we have that data, we'll be able to predict, but we're just really far from that. And I think in this age of people wondering how their privacy is protected and what's happening with that data, it might be challenging for companies to collect this. And then the couple companies that I've seen that are trying to collect this data, I feel like are kind of misleading people, because they're telling you that they're going to come back with these recommendations that are really just a lot of fluff. And I don't think that's the right approach. Like, don't try to sell something that's misleading in order to gather data. Just be honest and gather the data, and let's make this a team effort to figure this out, because I do think that would be important to understand in the long run. And then, I think we could perhaps use like the genomic testing to understand the metabolic activity, so the genes that code for the enzymes that break down the cannabinoids in the liver, the CYP genes. And this is commonly done now. You can get a test to see, wow, are you more likely to be a rapid metabolizer or a slow metabolizer of certain drugs? And I'm sure we could do that for cannabis and point us in the right direction, but why bother? Because we can just start low, go slow, and not be afraid to go all the way. And we're going to figure the same thing out eventually.
Very good. Thank you. And just a quick question in regard to, indica and sativa. We know that that the cultivars have just become so mixed that they really don't mean much anymore. Do you have placeholders that actually, refer to more sedating versus more energizing? Indica, sativa used to mean that.
I just use these terms, what's going to be more energizing and what's going to be more sedating. I think those are fine descriptors. That's the only thing I'm going with right now. I mean, maybe I'm kind of wandering around and leaving patients with this vague understanding, but I think that's better than saying, go buy some, mother of berry. Well, actually, that's one exception. Mother of berry is a main strain that is very good for relaxation and pain. And I haven't had many people say, oh, I tried that and it was like this amazing stimulating effect. But for most, I don't find it reliable. And so, yeah, I'm just saying, go ask the dispensary agent what they like or what they sell the most of for this particular issue.
Very good. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for everything you do.
You're welcome. Thanks, Becca. I'll see you on the next one. We'll do the research. Okay. So previously submitted was, where does one get medical advice when treating pain with cannabis? Right here. This was submitted by Linda. She wants to know if a combo of THC, CBD, and THCA is better. Yes, she's a bud tender in Colorado. She says CBD does not work for her. She had a total knee replacement, reacted severely to opioids post-surgically. cleared her system for 2 days with just Tylenol and then THC edibles, 15 to 30 milligrams. 30 milligrams works best for pain, but it makes me too high, and only she can use that at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, so this is a perfect question. So what happened here? There's a therapeutic window. In order to get the most pronounced benefits, you're having to go outside that window when you're using just THC. So it seems, I don't know, you're not live, and I don't know if did you try 22, 23, 24, 25? Because sometimes that precision incremental dosing, you can find the sweet spot that controls the pain without the impairment that you're trying to avoid during the day. But when you bring in the THCA, CBD, and CBDA, my expectation is that the therapeutic window is going to be wider and the effective total dose is going to be lower. So that's usually what we see. Okay. Last live question. I'm going to scan the spreadsheet. There's a lot I didn't answer that were previously submitted, and I apologize to the folks that I didn't get to. But if you're someone I didn't get to, whoa, there's a lot here. If I didn't get to your question, next time be brave and ask a live question, and we'll make sure that you get early in the queue.
Hello, Dr. Sulek. Hello,
Hello,
everyone.
Estefania. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thank you for your generosity. This is the first webinar about cannabis in this year. So I have a couple of questions. The first one is about CBD for anxiety. I know that every person is different and their body responds different, so we have to go from slow and titrate the dose. But in these times where a lot of people is experiencing a lot of symptoms of anxiety, they get more anxiety whenever you tell them like, be patient, wait until it works. So I want to ask you if you have any recommendation of maybe a dose that we can start, and from then titrate to get maybe a faster answer of the medication. And the second question is about CBN. So I am a clinician, so I have a couple of patients that have used everything and CBN is working for them, but they say that they sleep like a baby, but the day after they wake up like a little dizzy. I want to ask you, even with 1 drop or 2 drops with a low dose, so I cannot tell them to take half a drop, no, that's not possible. So I want to ask you, what can I do there for them?
Okay. Yeah, so I have a question for you about that, and then we'll go back to the CBD question, which is, have these patients also tried THC for sleep and found that it does or does not have that hangover effect?
No, they haven't tried THC.
So, I'm curious about CBN, but not that curious because, I think that cannabis that has it naturally occurring, maybe from the growing and drying process, and there's some levels of CBN there, I'm fine with that, but I'm somewhat concerned about the process that's needed to convert THC into CBN intentionally, because there's typically a lot of heat and pressure involved in that, and there's going to be a conversion of many other compounds. And so you're ending up with a product that has a lot of unknowns in it, unless you're just starting with some kind of a purified THC. And there's probably going to be all sorts of oxidative products that are occurring in there. And, like I said, maybe some are good, maybe some aren't, but it's just hard to know when you're exposing the cannabis to that much heat and pressure. And I've seen some paradoxical responses to CBN where people report it keeps them awake. I don't know. So I think they're getting a good result, but it seems too strong. And I guess just to address, like, how do you titrate by half a drop? Well, you take half the bottle out and fill it with a carrier, like inert oil. And now you've got something that's half the potency. So 1 drop is half as potent as it was prior
with
to that.
What?
Yeah,
With
so
what?
you could dilute, right? Say I've got a full bottle of CBN and I want to try to take half a drop. Just pour half of that bottle out and then fill the rest with olive oil or coconut oil or some other type of oil. and shake it up and mix it really good. And now that original formula is at half the
It's
potency.
That's the potency. Okay.
So back to CBD, usually the method that I'm recommending, unless I have a need to, more urgently get stronger results, or unless somebody's already tried a low dose and it hasn't worked, is I'll start at 5 milligrams a couple times a day. And then every other day increase by 5 milligrams. So they're doing 2 days at 5, 2 days at 10, 2 days at 15. And that's rapid enough so that people after 2 weeks, they're already up to like, that kind of 40 milligram range. And if they're not getting results by the time they get to 40 or 50 milligrams, it's probably too expensive anyways. And we should try a different strategy.
Okay. That's good. Every 2 days,
Yeah.
duplicate. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So glad to see you here. Okay. Wow, it's 9 o'clock. I said I was going to stop. I did see one person on the chat who seemed like she had a pressing question, and she raised her hand but didn't get chosen. Simone, is she the next in line, or if we ask her, are we going to be budging? I can't even see who that was now, but I did see it before.
Yeah, I just unmuted her.
Oh, great. Okay, last one, Lori. Lilia.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to say that I live in the state of Pennsylvania, and thankfully they legalized medical cannabis a year before I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. So medical cannabis saved me through my front line for the nausea, the pain, the sleep, everything that goes with it. I wanted to circle back around to what you said previously about immunotherapy and cannabis. And my question is it just the CBD that has the anti-inflammatory properties, or is it all of it? It's THC, THCA, or CBDA, all of that.
There are a lot of unknowns. The data, the 2 studies that have shown this effect come out of Israel. And it's, it looks like it shows up in a cohort that has exposure to both THC and CBD, but the data is not refined enough to differentiate if one thing is making more of a difference. And we have no understanding of whether the acidic cannabinoids are impacting this. And it's just the PD-1 checkpoint inhibitors like nivolumab that seem to be having this interaction. But I would, extrapolate that in theory, anything that's designed to increase inflammation may be somewhat inhibited by the use of anti-inflammatory compounds, including basically everything in cannabis that's anti-inflammatory. So I'd be very careful with it. As the data's gotten stronger, I've been a little stronger with my recommendations. Like I used to recommend, hey, 3 days before and 3 days after the infusion, don't have any cannabis. Now I'm kind of stretching that out to a week or maybe more, or maybe don't have any during that treatment at all unless you really need it. And then if you do, have a very low dose, and we can talk about coming back to cannabis once you're off the immunotherapy. There's just so many unknowns there, but I would really hate, there's certain cancers where these immunotherapies have a really high efficacy rate, and I don't want to interfere with that. Just to give a little more depth to the answer here, there are really severe side effects from these PD-1 inhibitors. So thyroiditis, pneumonitis, colitis, these are side effects that can limit the course of treatment and require high doses of steroids. And there is surprisingly little data on how those steroids, which are strong anti-inflammatories, impact the outcomes. How does that impact the success of the treatment? And that's something that should have been monitored this whole time. But when you look in the literature, there's just a little bit about that and really not much. And so one of my big questions is, could we use cannabis to nip those inflammatory symptoms in the lungs and the gut and elsewhere? Could we use it to nip that in the bud and spare the corticosteroids and have people be able to finish their course of treatment without these even more powerful anti-inflammatories? Because prednisone is going to be considered a stronger anti-inflammatory than most cannabinoids and cannabis compounds. So a lot we don't know there, but we got to be careful. I really want patients that are going through that expensive therapy to get the best results.
Well, and that's my whole thing is I want to get the best results. I'm currently doing an immunotherapy clinical trial. I have to be completely clean of any steroids. That means I can't use my albuterol inhaler. I can't use anything that's got steroids in it because it will affect the efficacy of the immunotherapy. So that's why, having used my cannabis, you know, my flower vaporizer and my tinctures and my capsules, yeah, and when you need the most are the days right after the infusion, because that's when you've got the nausea and the sleepless nights and everything else. But I don't want to be shooting myself in the foot and be counteracting what the therapy is supposed to be doing.
I hear you. I think in these situations where no one has the answer, somewhere inside of you there is the answer. And and if that little thing inside of you is really telling you to use the cannabis to nip these, you know, post-treatment symptoms in the bud, you know, if I was in your shoes, not knowing anything else that I don't know right now, I would, you know, I would be very conservative, but use just a little bit of cannabis. And I don't think, I mean, who knows?
Judicious.
Yes, yes. So that you know, judicious use, exactly. But in the meanwhile, it's amazing to see you here. You're doing as well as you are and looking healthy. And congrats and thanks for sharing your story. I hope this goes really well.
Well, I've enrolled in the healer certification program, and I am a registered nurse. And so my goal is to not only help myself, but to help others around me as well. People are always coming and asking me because they know I use cannabis. And they're, well, how should I use this? How should I use that? I want to give them correct advice for their own treatment. But yeah, I'm, you know, past my 2-year cancerversary last week and just keep plugging along.
I love it. Congratulations. Well, thank you, everyone. I did not plan for this to be another 2-hour webinar, but it was. And that's okay. I'm so glad to see you all. I'm impressed by how many of you stuck around for the whole time. I hope you enjoyed it. This is complimentary. This is because I love you and I want to help you and help you help others. And if you want to love us back, it's very easy. Go to healercbd.com and order a little bottle. We have these tiny little bottles that you could get, or a bigger one. And if you don't need it, give it away as a gift. It makes a great, loving gift to people. We would love your support in exchange for what you've received tonight. And if you don't do that, that's fine too. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you all. Sorry to the folks that didn't get their question answered. We do our best, but there will be another webinar, God willing, and I'll see you then. Have a great night.